America, we are so back. Welcome to another episode of Unchained with Pierre Wilson. And I cannot tell you guys how happy I am today. I mean, I want to do backflips. I feel like I want to go down the street and just honk my horn at everybody and just say MAGA and just run through the grocery stores with my MAGA hat on and just taste some more liberal tears. Man, I'm just hyped right now because we are back. We are back. And I have some great guests with me today to talk about the election. It's so much to dive into. So many great things happened last night and continue to happen this morning as the rest of the numbers came in. And I'm looking forward to diving deep into these numbers. I want to welcome my guest, though. I have Madeline Brom with me. She is the state director of Blexit New York. Madeline, welcome to Unchained. I have Dr. Tracy Phillips. She has done a little bit of everything, but right now she oversees our education department with Blexit. She's been with Blexit so long. Welcome, Dr. Tracy Phillips. And I got probably the craziest man in the whole universe right now. This guy is hilarious. One of my good friends, Anthony Watson, Blexit contributor. Welcome to Unchained. This is an all-star panel, guys. You guys, I'm so happy you guys are here. I want to start with you guys. I know. Listen, and Master P, I need to know if you voted Trump, by the way, because I saw some stuff earlier that made me wonder. But anyway, the real Master P. But anyway, I want to start with you, Anthony, too, and I'm going to go to you, Dr. Tracy and Madeline. But Anthony, tell me how you're feeling about the election, because this, to me, it's historic, brother. I mean, this is only, the second time that a president has, and I may be wrong, fact checkers check me. I know it's been a while, but a president has lost the election, when he ran for re-election and then was able to get back to the Oval Office. How you feeling?
Well, let me just correct everybody, because this ain't anything where I got to censor myself. We never lost the other election. This is just the one that they couldn't take away from us. Okay. So before I get into all the semantics, I think it's important that we all say that we are not just the people here in the United States. We are believers that believe that Jesus still has hope for this nation and whatnot. And when we fail to remember that it's what he says in the end, that's when we start getting into the semantics of politics and what men can do for us when men can't really do anything except screw up. So I am excited. I am happy, because this is just proof of what Blexit has done. All the people who have spent time on the ground, in the crowds, pushing back against everything that was said against them. All the times the venues were shut down. All the times people weren't coming out to events. All the times you got doors slammed in your face. All the times when you had to fight with all these idiots that swore up and down that they knew what was best for them. And what did we do? We kept our heads down. We kept trucking. And the faithful few are now the silent majority that now finally spoke out on election night to finally get us our president back in office, to finally do good for the American people that he swore he was going to do a job for until then. And so I am excited with you, man. I want to go flip some cars and do whatever, but then I'm just going to be labeled a BLM activist. So I'm going to just keep my excitement contained.
I think and then you mentioned BLM, and we did a great job of destroying BLM. I want to say really quickly something about BLM that a lot of people don't know, because you spoke a little bit about Blexit there. Blexit actually did what I call like a covert secret operation, where we took it upon ourselves to kind of dismantle BLM on the ground. So while so many people were talking about BLM on their platform, right, Blexit actually was organizing chapters to reach out and connect with BLM chapter leaders in these states. And I think we haven't really heard people talk about it a lot, but BLM was really silent this election cycle. And I know it's multiple reasons for that, right? We got Patrice Cullors out here buying mansions in white neighborhoods. I mean, their credibility was shot, but they had a bigger foundation on the ground than I think people realize. It doesn't mean it was a good one, but they did have a foundation. They had people on the ground that were advocating for the movement, and we were able to get to them to the point that we have some people within Blexit who are actually former BLM leaders. So it just kind of touches on the work we've been doing. Dr. Tracy, Anthony was talking a little bit about just some of the numbers as well in the election and just how so many different groups moved. I want to ask you really quick, because I want to get into the black vote and all that, but I want to ask you really quick about the women's vote, because she banked on this. She said that this was going to be the difference, and this was going to be the thing that brought her over the top. And you look at the numbers, the exit polls are still coming in, but women did not go for her as much as she thought. What happened there?
Nah, she banked wrong. That's what happened. Hey, before we can start, can we all just do a red wave? Because we are only 17 seats away. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Everybody just do a red wave. Come on, let's do it. Madeline, we are 17 seats away from taking over the House. And
we are so close.
We will not have to worry about any of that crazy stuff for at least 2 years probably 4. But yeah, Pierre, about you women, she just banked wrong. She really just went all in on the abortion issue, and I don't know why. So listen, the Democrats are stupid. That's the only word I have for it. They really are, because they really pick up the wrong things and really think everybody else is going to go along. Like, not every woman wants to get an abortion. I'm sorry. Matter of fact, I'm going to say most women don't want to get an abortion. And so that's what they banked on. And look, they lost. It's plain and simple.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, and you're right, because abortion was, like she said, that was going to be her winning issue, right? That was the thing that was going to drive these mass numbers of women to the poll, and that she was going to get carried over the top because of this issue. But I think what she realized, and again, as the exit polls continue to come out, you're seeing the economy obviously as a top issue, which people just want to be able to pay for groceries, right? We just want to be able to pay for groceries. Like we want to be able to get gas. We want to not feel like we're breaking the bank and go out to get something to eat, enjoy maybe a Friday night or something with our family without feeling like we have to second guess our entire life because we just paid $1 billion at the restaurant, right? So she overplayed her hand. But the other thing that was an issue too that came up a lot in exit polls were crime. Crime was something that you saw being a big issue in places like Chicago, right? And obviously Trump didn't win Illinois, but when you look at it and you look at how close the vote was in some of these states, crime played a big part in illegal immigration and the crime that some of them cause, right? And Madeline, I know one of the things that you speak about a lot is the justice system in the way that it fails people. I mean, are you shocked to see that crime was so high on people's list? What are your thoughts?
Hi, Pierre. Thank you guys for having me, Dr. Tracy. And what's the gentleman's name?
The great Anthony Watson. You can't forget his name. He's not going to let you live that down when he sees you.
Watkins. Okay. Crime is up there in the top three. All right. Especially in states like New York and Chicago and St. Louis and, California. Not only did we have our own, brand of criminals that were let out of jail because of bail reform and raise the age and elder parole and all the different, insane, supposedly criminal justice reform policies that were in place. We also had hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants dumped onto our sidewalks, and a large majority of them were let out from the prison systems in the countries that they came from. Prison systems, insane asylums, wherever they came from, all right? And these people are, especially in New York, we have a full-blown, just open air, free-for-all, smash and grabs, snatching necklaces, chains, and punching people in the face and riding by a moped, snatching pocketbooks, rapes in the middle of the day, dragging women between cars, and raping them right there in the middle of the day. Bunch of stuff happening here, bunch of stuff happening here in New York City. We have the sex trafficking that's happening in AOC's district, open air, young girls, 10, 11, 12, just out there on the track, just turning tricks all day long, and the police don't do anything because why would they? If you put the cuffs on too tight, they'll scream police brutality. And also, if the cops arrest them and bring them to the precinct, they have to let them go immediately. They'll never make it in front of a judge. So yeah, we just have a free for all here in New York with the crime, and I'm literally afraid. I won't use the word afraid because God doesn't give me a spirit of fear, but I'm very cautious. My head is on swivel. My head is on swivel everywhere I'm walking, because you never know who's going to come up behind you, what their intention is. First of all, they're not even speaking our language, so you don't know what they're saying, right? And this is just across the board, the feeling across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at illegal immigration just as a whole, that was the issue that I think Trump kind of he was willing to put his hat on that issue and say, I think this is going to be a bigger issue than what's showing up in some of the polls that they were doing, right? In the polls that they were doing, there were some polls that were showing illegal immigration high originally before yesterday, right? But there were some polls that were showing it was maybe like 4th or 5th on the list. But then you look at the exit polls yesterday, and it was high on pretty much every single exit poll that you saw. And I think Americans are fed up. Anthony, I want to ask you too. You know, when you look at just the overall exit data, you see so many different groups, and you touched on this, right, that trended towards Trump. And it seems like the country as a whole was just almost turned off completely by Kamala Harris and her rhetoric. And, you know, what stood out to me, I was watching Scott Presler, and shout out to Scott Presler, man, that man worked so hard. And he's a big reason why we were able to flip Pennsylvania. But they were getting the Amish out to vote, you know, out there. And my wife and I were sitting there like, oh my goodness, you know, it's serious when the Amish are on their way to vote. But another number that we saw was Catholics. Catholics also voted at a big number, or excuse me, a large number for Trump. Anthony, was there some trend that you think happened over the last 4 years that kind of just turned people off completely with the Democrat Party? What happened?
Well, of course there was a trend. What have we heard Democrats say their entire existence is that we're here for you. We're a party of the people. We're here to get your issues taken care of. And as soon as they get in office, they forget. The same people that swear up and down that they're there to go work and make sure that you get more money in your paycheck are the same ones that come back to you a month later saying, like, we actually need to take more taxes because so-and-so in here didn't do a good job. Now we've got to make sure that we take more from you to do all of this. All of these people that talk about raising your taxes, talk about raising prices, you got to remember, like, politicians don't punch a time card. They get paid off of what comes in from taxpayer dollars. So whenever they raise taxes, guess what raises? Their paychecks. So all of these people that were profiting off of the pain that they caused, because they need that to be there in all of these communities, because as long as there's an issue, they can be the people who are dressed up as the white knights to go and take out the issues and go get rid of all the bad guys, to then come back and then sell you on a false stream of, we did our best, but if you just vote for me again, I swear I'm going to get this thing done now. They get people so upset because they isolate them. And when you're isolated, you literally just listen to the voices of the people that are around you, which is why they were so divisive in the 2020 era, trying to get everyone through racism and through this white supremacy. You hear these things so commonly now that they don't affect you like they used to 10 years ago when you used to hear these words. And so now when you have people coming in by the droves, making all of these promises to a group of people that literally were worse off under them from the beginning of this party's existence, now they started to wake up and be like, well, we want better for ourselves. So what did they start doing when that happened? They started ignoring the American citizens, all the people who were raised in the projects and raised in the ghettos, and then they started funneling in all of these illegals to now replace them in those same cities that they had all these people that were relying on them for decades. And so then what happened in the very end? You finally had Americans being like, what is going on here? I have almost nothing, and you're taking the very little that I have to go and support these people that aren't even legally documented to be here. You saw it in Chicago when the groups came in and said, you're having how many illegals in our schools, our community centers, shutting down gyms, shutting down schools and programs for all of these kids that have nothing but gang violence and inevitably death in their future, and all of their sports clinics that were now used as an alternative from street life are now being taken over by all these illegal immigrants. And it wasn't until July when the Supreme Court said that it is illegal for you to vote in U.S. elections if you are not a registered citizen. So then what happened? That's when you saw all of the campaigning start to pick up like it never did before, because they weren't banking. They were banking on everything now, just going by all of the illegals that they brought in and ignoring the people that they swore to protect. So when the people started moving, they moved them right out the way and started shoveling these people in their backyard. And now they have a reckoning to pay because the people have spoken, and they finally said, listen, if this is the person that's going to get the job done to do what it takes to finally get us to be on our grind and finally back to be in a stable position to actually have a chance in this country, then this is the area that we're going to go. So immigration was a big thing. You heard it in Trump's speech last night where he said the first thing that we're going to do for the first couple of years is we're shutting our country down. No more exports, no more things going out, because we got to heal and we got to rebuild from the inside. And that starts with the community. Trump is a billionaire, but he knows how to speak common language, because everyone here, when they heard him speak, and everything, the things that matter to us, finally someone with enough gall had enough stones to stand against the machine and get things done and empower people like us to finally take the things that we had been saying for so long and actually have some merit behind it, to be like, if you do this, I promise this is going to be the result. And now this is just one battle. Getting him in was the battle, but now we got to make sure that we stay on top of it when the weight lifts.
That's right.
And you look at it and you make so much sense, right? You make so much, it's just common sense stuff. And the way Trump talks to us is, there's no special way. It's common sense. I keep telling people that if you just stop, especially my liberal friends and family, I'm like, if you take a second and take off your Rachel Maddow glasses, okay, and you you open up your eyes, open up your ears, and you actually just listen to him talk, you'll actually understand that he's trying to help you. For example, I got on my pro-life shirt today because I'm sitting here trying to explain to people that they're bringing in these illegal immigrants to replace you. They're giving them furnished apartments and Visa gift cards and all sorts of stuff. And what are you getting out of this? You're getting nothing. You're getting replaced is what you're getting. And I think in the last census, Black people were, I think we accounted for less of the population than we did before, right? We don't care about that. That's not a problem. We just get abortion pushed on us, right? Why aren't there abortion clinics set up at the border? It's like, but they're all over Black communities, right? So we get the call for the destruction of our race, but illegal immigrants, they get furnished apartments and Visa gift cards and a quality of life. Like, that doesn't upset you, right? So if I'm advocating for more Black life to be born, I am totally okay, because I'm willing to go to the Lord with that battle of who is actually the one that cares about Black people. But Dr. Tracy, I want to get you in on this too, because we can list a lot of reasons of why Trump won, and I've been hearing the news, talk about why Kamala lost, and you got to be careful when you hear that, because they're trying to take credit also away from why he won, right? It's a difference, So yeah, she was a flawed candidate in my eyes, but Trump very much, when you see that map and you see what he was able to do, that man won. He won that election. But you can still also say that Kamala was a bit of a flawed candidate. What are your thoughts on Kamala? Should the Democrats have run her in the first place?
Oh, absolutely not. She was not. I don't even think they wanted to run her. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think they were in a corner, because if they wanted to run her, they would have done it a long time ago, because they knew Biden was not up to the task. They knew that he was mentally deficient long before the debate that shut down the world, right? And they were in a corner, and they knew they had to pull someone out. They had to bring someone out. And so their options were Gavin Newsom, who is a controversial figure because of California, and her. And what they saw, I think, is that they were hemorrhaging the Black vote. They were already hemorrhaging the Black vote when Biden was still running, because the numbers were already in double digits. I think back then, I was checking, it was like 13 or 14%, which historically, you have to understand, the Black vote for the Republican Party is normally 2%, 3%, maybe. But we were already about 13. So another bad strategy that they had was, we're going to put a quote unquote Black female. We won't even go there. Okay, we're going to leave that piece alone, because she's, as of today, she's Indian again.
Is she Black?
Indian, because she don't need to be Black anymore. But they wanted to put a Black woman in, thinking that that would pull back the minority vote to the Democratic side, because they always believe that we only will vote identity. They've believed that for over a century, that Black people are only going to vote identity. So as long as we just give them somebody to relate to, they'll come back. And of course, it was a misjudgment on their part. It didn't work. It was another strategy that failed. But you asked me why Trump won. And I really believe Trump won because he understood what was happening. He understood what our concerns were. And it has absolutely nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with gender. It ticks me off when I hear all the pundits talk about misogyny, particularly around Black men can't handle a Black woman in charge. Black men were born of Black women, okay?
Thank you.
A Black woman is in charge of every Black man that has ever walked this earth. So there is no misogyny or fear of having a Black woman in charge. Their mothers were in charge of them way before anybody else. That is just an excuse. But
Can I add something? Sorry, Doctor. Can I add something really quick? Because I want you to finish your thought. But I've been hearing this a lot too about Black men don't want to see a woman in charge. And I think it's important to mention that Hillary Clinton got more of the black male vote than Kamala did. So I don't think it has anything to do with her being a woman, because Hillary Clinton actually kept this coalition together a lot better than Kamala did. I think it has everything to do with black men waking up here in 2024, which I'm going to give Blexit credit for. But sorry, go ahead and finish your thought.
No, that's what I was going to say, is people were waking up in the last 4 years, showed us the economy was in the toilet, and they, no matter how much they want to deny that was the main issue, there's no way to do that, because every day you have to buy groceries, every day you have to buy gas, you're trying to get a house. I mean, that has to be at the top of everyone's list. What was interesting to me is that the people who are trying to put issues like abortion, like some of these other things we mentioned, are all those who don't worry about money every single day. All of those celebrities that came out, they have never shopped in Walmart. They don't know what it's like to do a grocery list. They don't know what it's like to have to worry. They don't have to worry.
Beyonce, yep.
Right. and then you're talking about safety, and you know, as Madeline was talking about the what's happening in New York, these people have armed security. They never have to worry about walking the streets and getting raped or beat up. So it's interesting that they honestly, their playbook is, if we tell them what to do, they'll do it. So in actuality, the Democratic Party is the one that's trying to mentally enslave us. You know, I talk about this a lot, P. You know that.
You have a great training on it, actually, plantation to plantation.
Plantation, yes. But it has, unfortunately, it's still working, and that's what Blexit is doing to open those minds up, because it's not working as well as they wanted. But the reason they put Kamala in was because they were reading from that same playbook. Let's put a quote unquote black female in, and all of a sudden, all of the good, you know what, the Negroes will come home, because they'll want to see themselves. And they were wrong, because more than wanting someone to see ourselves in the White House, we want to see food on our kids' plates. And that's what made them lose.
Well, you know, we're at a place now, and Madeline, I want to get your thoughts on this too, because you have a great relationship with President Trump, and you know firsthand that him winning is just the beginning. They are going to still come after him. I don't know if you guys saw Letitia James, her press conference earlier today there in New York. And I mean, that was a dark press conference. My goodness, she essentially wanted to let everybody know that they are still going to come after him, if not more. And that, you know, there is no one celebrating here, right? Essentially, we don't care that this man is now the president of all he's going to be the president of all of the United States. We're going to still come after him, right? Because some partisan witch hunt that they're on. Why is that happening, especially in New York, when you see the trends in New York? New Yorkers, again, he lost New York, but New York was a lot closer too. People are waking up. I think I saw in AOC's district, he ran up the numbers there too I think he doubled or tripled Romney's numbers or something that had he is making a lot of inroads. You saw the Madison Square Garden rally. I think you were there. Yeah. I mean, does she not see the red flags all around her that Americans don't like this? Why is she still going after this man? Do you think it'll work?
Well, you know, I know Letitia James before she became the Attorney General, when she was the public advocate. You know, she reached out to me a few times to help get her numbers up, like to march in the African American Day Parade, and you know, just to get bodies at an event or two of hers. You know, this is a cold-hearted woman, right? She has no feeling. All right. After she uses you up, she spits you out. Like, she'll walk down the African American Day parade route, right? And if she sees a baby in the crowd, she'll run over and grab that baby and turn around and do that, you know, megawatt smile she has for the camera, and then practically throw the baby back at where she got it from and continue on the route.
Wow.
So this is a cold-hearted woman. Letitia James just has higher aspirations. She's very, very ambitious. She's very ambitious, and also now she has a vendetta because of the lawsuit that her and that Judge Engron or whatever went after Trump in that astronomical amount of money that was overturned. All right, so now she is embarrassed. She's got egg on her face, and she thinks she's a big shot. She thinks she's a big shot. She thinks that New York has her back, right? I think for the most part, right? She's marching to orders as well. If she does what Eric Adams did, the mayor, and stand up and say that, we getting, he spoke out against the illegals being here. It was unsustainable, and all of a sudden he had an FBI case against him, just like that.
Mhm.
Right? Not him, but his higher, his closest senior advisors. All of them, were forced to resign, step down, or got cases pending. And Letitia doesn't want that happening to her. All right. Because if she stands up and says or acts in any way that she agrees with anything that Trump says, or, it admits that things are unsustainable, that things are, just going really, really bad in New York, if she stands up and admits that, she'll be the next in line. Kathy Hochul as well, our governor. All right. This is why they're acting like they don't see what's going on. They're ignoring it. Eric Adams, you call it what you want. You can call him making a mistake by standing up and saying that this is unsustainable, right? Or you can call it him finally, standing up and having a backbone and taking one for the team. All right, because it's wrong what's happening here in New York. It's also wrong what's happening in Chicago. And we have elected officials that are part of the problem. They've created the problem. They created it, and they continue to feed the narrative. And you talk about it being dark. We were just in Harlem, me, Steven, and the whole Turning Point crew, and we filmed a documentary or clips of a documentary, and we were out at 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. And this young man saw us out there with the cameras and stuff, and he literally pulled his car over, jumped out, and ran over and got into the front of the camera. What are y'all talking about? What are y'all talking about? So him and Steven got into a heated argument.
Oh no, not Steve. He got Steven heated.
Argument right there in the middle of Harlem, 125th Street.
He saw Steven and still decided to go
until he pushed up on him and saw that Steven's chest was like 3 times the size of his. All right. But anyway, the climate here, in New York City, especially in the Black community, is that of slavery. There's a slave mentality here, straight up. Okay. Is a poverty mentality here. These people really, really feel that, it's everybody else's fault. They take no responsibility for it. They're still stuck in slavery 400 years ago, and they're so Afrocentric. They're super uber Black people. All right. And no matter what anyone says, no matter how bad the situation, no matter what they see with their own eyes, they will still refuse to admit that if they don't like Trump or not, all right, that take a minute to just listen to his policies. Listen to what the man is saying that he wants to do. Because Pierre, you said it a minute ago, all right? He's talking exactly what we need. He's talking exactly what we're thinking. But you see, people will live in denial and just refuse to look at the situation for what it really is because they hate Trump. They hate him because, number one, he's white. Okay, he's white, and anybody who voted for Trump, if they're Black, they're coon, they're Uncle Tommy. The guy even called Steven that. He even called Steven that. He called him a house Negro is what he called him. All right.
I think Steven's a little too dark to have been in the house.
What?
He's too big to be in the house.
I'm just giving an example of the mentality, and that's basically across the board. You know, and these people just refuse to vote. If they vote, they just refuse to vote for anything other than a Democrat, and that's just it.
Well, there is definitely some, and I will say this. There are, I mentioned this earlier when I was talking to people. There is still a lot of work to be done, particularly with the Black vote as well, because there are some red flags in it too. But I will say I was very happy to see some of the numbers. I don't know, the team, if we have the numbers that we can throw up on the screen. I want to kind of talk to those numbers a little bit too. Nice. So Black men, for example, which is I'm going to be honest with you. Someone said on Twitter they were quoting Van Jones. We all love a good Van Jones cry show, right? But he had said, black women are hurting tonight. And I commented under and I said, well, black men are celebrating. So I just, so because black ultimately, and obviously two black women that are not hurting tonight are on the show right now. They're very happy they're celebrating with the men. But I think what we saw as far as the numbers go with black men, I think this one shows 23%. There are some polls as high as like 28%. What they did in Atlanta, I don't know if you guys saw that. I think that was sitting around 25, 26%. I mean, that's a large percentage of black men. And for those who don't know, I've been doing this for years, and I had been telling people, you move the vote 10, 12, 13, 14%. That is huge. You don't need a really massive number to shake up the race. You really only need a small percentage. So when you look at that number of 23% of men, black men, nationally supporting Trump, that's monumental. Anthony, are you surprised, or what are your thoughts on that as a man, as a black man?
No, I'm not
as
surprised.
An Olympian black man.
Hey man, I earned that. But listen, it's just like the mentality of a black man today in today's culture is sad because it's all self-centered. There was a season when black men would give everything they had for their country and for their family and the things that impacted them the most. And you have nobody now that's doing that. So Donald Trump came in and told everybody back in 2016, if you vote for me, what do you have to lose? You've been doing the same thing over and over again. So what's anything worse by trying something different? And it worked. Because all these guys who were saying, man, I got to hustle. I got to go grind. I'm all about my bread. I'm all about my stacks. And I'm all about, just trying to make ends meet. Everyone was like the people who still wanted to complain, who wanted more, were still getting money, but still satisfied and happy under Trump just until they got deceived into believing that there was something better for them. It goes by saying it's just like everyone says the grass is greener on the other side until you realize when you get to your neighbor's yard, he just spends more time watering it. There's work that needs to be done on either side here. And what people did after COVID, after all of these things, can I say that? Oops. After that pandemic, when everything got shut down, it forced people into a box because everything was fear. And when you make people feel suspicious, when critical race theory took off and it made a whole generation of black men, black women, and the black community suspicious of everybody else that was different from them, where did they go? They went back to what they're used to. It's like all these people in toxic relationships. They're too afraid and too not used to getting the best for themselves. So they'd rather go back into something abusive and toxic because that's what they're familiar with. They know it ain't the best, but they don't feel worthy enough to have the best for themselves. And so you built a community up to just have it wrecked and destroyed to the point where literally inflation was through the roof, gas prices were impossible, grocery stores were literally being plummeted, stolen, and ravaged because people couldn't afford to do anything anymore. People couldn't clothe themselves. I was like, people couldn't go anywhere. It was getting too expensive to pick your own nose because you couldn't afford the Kleenex tissues.
Yeah.
All of these things that we saw that were implemented into a community of people that people for decades have lied to and used and profited off of the pain that they caused.
Yep.
And then try to come back and then try to play hero by getting everyone involved. They create these problems, unleash them, and then tell everybody else it's by everybody's fault. And so in the situation that we have here, you had people that had enough. And I think the thing that pushed everybody over the border, no pun intended, was the border crisis. When people started flooding into the cities that people have been working so hard to get out of, or that they have been settled in for so long, and finally found people literally just being given it for free, like you said, Pierre, with Visa gift cards, getting $5,000 a month in some of these cities, and then everybody else looking at us and being like, "Where's ours? We've been here. You've been making us promises for years." And so finally, it came to a point where it's just like, "There's got to be something different. We'll take anything except this." And then we got Trump back saying, listen to every single person who's in the black community. You guys have been taken advantage of. So here's what I'm going to do for you. We're going to now get you guys, your communities cleaned up. We're going to get all the people who don't belong there out of there. We're going to bring the jobs back here so that you guys have opportunities to work, get more money. We're going to lower costs on things so that when you guys have money, there's taxes not coming out of it. You guys have more money for your bank accounts, for your families, and everything else where you can actually make a sustainable living. You want to get out of that Section 8 apartment and get a house? We have a plan for that. You want to have your communities cleaned up, free from crime and drugs and everything else? We got a plan for that. And so the men, and I'm so glad it was the men, because society's rise and falls on the back of men. And so the men finally said, it's time for us to take a step up, and we got to do something different for our communities, and we got to turn into leaders that everyone needs us to be right now. So Donald Trump is just the doorway, but it's also a calling up for the men that literally are living in the times that we're in right now, because we're needed more than ever right now to be the people that lead the way, and will fight for it no matter what the cost is.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and I'm proud that it's a men too. I think Dr. Tracy, I remember at one point, because you've been with Blexit for so long, at one point we had to have a meeting because we were getting a lot of women coming into Blexit, but we couldn't figure out how to really crack into the community and get more men. And I don't know, man, over the last year and a half, all of a sudden we just started exploding. More men were coming in. You see it in the leadership positions across Blexit too, and it made all of us happy. There's not one woman in Blexit, for the audience who's listening, who was like, man, there's more men. The women were some of the main people that were like, we need to get more men in here. So we solve a need, and then to see where we are today now, to see men step up and really make such a big difference in this election, it just makes my heart. What did Kamala say earlier? My heart is actually full because we're on a winning team. Your heart is probably broken right now, but poor Kamala, cry more tears. But Dr. Tracy, I have something funny for you. I've been on Twitter the last couple hours, and liberal women are going on a sex strike for men now because of the black male vote. I don't know if you've seen this. What are your thoughts about the sex strike happening?
Okay.
They're going on a sex strike, apparently.
So we do understand that no decent man wants to have sex with a liberal woman anyway. Okay. So that's not a big loss for them. Look, come on over to the conservative side. We look much better. We take care of ourselves. We don't have pink hair. I saw a video of a woman, she's shaving her own head as to get back. I'm like, does she not realize in about 48 hours she gonna wake up and it's not gonna look very pretty? And she no, that's not a big thing. Go on strike, because half of you aren't women anyway, so it doesn't matter.
And it was, I don't know if we have the video of the rallies, but Kamala, you saw as the night progressed, you saw some of those women, and honestly, she was actually at HBCU, so
headquarters.
You can see here. Look how empty it got.
Happening there. The Harris one, it does look like they're leaving. So there you have.
And the Trump supporters are just having a good time.
Left the building. They're not there anymore.
They're just having a good time. And the Kamala supporters, they were crying tears last night. And honestly, I'll tell you, I actually didn't see a lot of blue-haired women last night. She was at Howard, so they didn't have a lot of blue hair.
No.
As much, but but she didn't even come out and address her supporters last night or say anything to them. And they had all got there wanting to hear something from her. But this morning, I noticed that the crowd looked really different. We do work on HBCU campuses, so we know what they look like. They're pretty black. But the crowd she spoke to this morning was actually pretty white. So I don't know if a lot of the black people just decided they weren't going to come, and all the blue-haired liberals showed up today that you were talking about. But Madeline, what are your thoughts as a state director in Blexit about the black vote in general? Because I know you talk about, and you see a lot. New York is a place, if you really want to kind of get a feel for what the Democrats are doing to these people and the brainwashing that's taking place. New York is a place you would go. So you understand, you've been on the front lines. But when you see the black male vote, does that make you happy? But also on the other side of that, when you look at the black women, who I think are coming in around like 9 or 10%, so far behind black men, does that make you sad? And what's with the gap?
Well, it makes me very happy, ecstatic to see that number grow to 23%, because at the end of the day, we were raised with conservative values. All right. All black people were. And the men, you said it earlier, or the gentleman said it earlier, it's like, we're looking for them to finally stand up and take their rightful place, all right? And do the right thing. We're so used to our men doing everything that they're not supposed to do, from going to jail to being unemployed to, no education, this, that, and the third, all right? But there are middle-class men, hard-working men, family men, who are really, really hurting and struggling, all right? And they see their children. They see their family not being able to, or them not being able to provide for them like they're used to providing for them because of the economy. All right. And like my brother, for instance, he works for the Long Island Railroad, right? Lives out here in Long Island. He owned three properties, including his own. He's got a family. Everything was good. All right. Until Bidenomics. And when I go and visit him now, I see him sitting in the corner. He's so sad because he cannot provide and he can't sustain. He had to give up his properties because of the pandemic when tenants didn't have to pay rent. And they, even though they were given that stimulus money, they didn't pay my brother his rent, and he still had to put a roof on the house. He still had to put an oil burner in there. All right. And he couldn't afford to maintain the taxes and the mortgage. So he had to dump two of his properties because of Bidenomics. And he looks so sad now. Excuse me, he looks so sad sitting there because his children still want this and still want that. They don't understand. Their kids.
Yeah.
Sorry. But he feels bad because he's not able to provide for them like he used to, and so he definitely voted, for Trump.
Yeah.
And a lot of men I know have voted for Trump, but then there are some that haven't. Yeah. There's some that haven't, but I'm absolutely ecstatic to see that needle move to 23%. And the women are just not voting for Trump, and because they're just stupid. They're just stupid. They're just dumb. They like the Megan Thee Stallion and the Dirty Red and the Cardi B, and they like all that. They like all that mess, all that nonsense that Kamala was parading out in front of them, to try to influence their vote. And it worked. It worked. And it's so sad. And it plays directly into the abortion piece. Because what she was parading out there leads to the thinking, which eventually leads to the behavior of creating unwanted pregnancy, which leads to abortion. Yeah. So it played right into the hand of, her whole entire platform. She was very disrespectful. What she did to them kids yesterday at Howard. Them kids were, I saw, some clips and some footage of the kids were crying. Just like she left them hanging. If she had got elected, she would have left every last single American hanging, just like she left us hanging for the past 4 years as vice president. She was missing action. She did absolutely nothing. She got $1 billion in campaign donations, and she took that money and she ran. Her and a whole bunch of them did that.
She certainly wasted it. That's for sure. And I think when Democrats look back on this, they are going to realize that she was an absolute flawed candidate, and everything they accused Trump of being, they were over the last 2 election cycles. Yeah. They kept saying that he was going to be the threat to democracy. Meanwhile, they installed a candidate as their nominee who didn't receive a single vote, right? And they talked about Trump weaponizing the justice system against his enemies. Yet they were the ones turning around trying to hold him. Pretty much election interference by having him in the court every single day, right, or every week, right? Everything that they said that he was, they were. And I think Americans didn't fall for it. Anthony, what do you want to see from a Trump presidency? What does he have to do in the next 4 years to make sure that when he does leave office, that Americans and Black Americans can look back and say, you know what, I think I found a home on the conservative side. I want to stay here. What does he have to do?
Well, I think he said it himself last night in his victory speech. He said, I want to live by one thing: promises made, promises kept. That's what made all of us Trump believers when he first won the election the first time. And that's what kept us on the Trump train, even through all of the miscues, the mistrials, the false allegations, the Mueller report, the Stormy Daniels accusations, all of these kinds of things, because that's what we all go through. Character literally gets flawed, tainted, and attacked at every corner because people who are prone to evil want to do everything in the darkness so that they can get more for themselves at the expense of other innocent people in the way. And so I think right here, what is the most important thing to Americans right now? The biggest thing is our pocketbooks. So it's just, are you going to cut the taxes that you said you would, which I believe he will because he did it before. The second thing is just like our country. Are you going to shut the border down and you're going to keep the people in here safe? Because the whole mantra of everything that has to deal with politics and everything else that we see in the United States is everybody at some point feels like they don't have a voice because they don't have a big following, or they don't have a voice because of where they grew up or their circumstances or their situations that they find themselves in now. And that's not the case. You know, everyone never really cared about the border until all of these things started happening in their cities, and then it's spilling out into their neighborhoods, and then it became a problem that everyone couldn't ignore anymore. So now we have an issue. Now we have to find out what we can do as a country to fix it, because last night, what did you see? You saw the silent majority that we have been talking about for years finally speak up, and look at what happened. It wasn't even close. People in news outlets were holding back the numbers. They weren't putting everything. They didn't want to call it, but they had no choice, because there was undenying and there was undeniable evidence this time that the people who want better for themselves spoke up and said something. And that's the beauty about being an American that a lot of people take for granted every single day. I tell everybody, if you are somebody that is so jaded to let people who have no relationship with you, who don't care about you, don't know your name, don't know your background, don't care to know anything about you, tell you that this is what your future is, and you believe that, that says more about your lack of character and integrity for yourself. More self-loathing, disrespect for yourself, to let people who have no interest in the future that you want for yourself going to now tell you and dictate how you feel and how you operate in the world that we're in right now. So it's not about what Trump can do. We put him there because in America, we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic that says when the people speak, this is what happens. And the people spoke, because this is a man who was always for the people. And so now to see where America goes is going to be what he decides to do with the opportunity that he has been given by the people who put him there. That's the one thing that people cannot forget, is that elected officials only get there by the people who put them in power. So when we are upset and we don't want to do anything, it's up to us to make sure that we use our exercising of our First Amendment right to speak, petition, regather, and put everything out there that we can when we can't do it. Because another 4 years of having people try to tell you that the sky is orange when it's really blue and try to convince you of all these other things is only shame on us. So I am so grateful, Pierre, for all the work that you're doing, because I know it's hard. Dr. Tracy, thank you so much for everything that you do. And Miss Madeline, all the way in New York, I appreciate everything that you're doing, because it's all the work that you guys do in secret that gets the real job done. Because I see you guys when you're at all these events, it's like people show up at the events, but whenever there's a problem, whenever there's a circumstance, a situation, a glitch, people come running to you. So it's the job that nobody wants. Everybody wants the reward of leadership, and nobody wants to sacrifice or the work that has to come with it. Everybody wants the accolades. Everybody wants the main stage speaking spot. Everybody wants the spotlight. Everybody wants the book deals, the autographs, the photo ops, the meet and greets, but nobody wants the work. Nobody wants the hours. Nobody wants the organizing. Nobody wants all of those kinds of things that leaders do. So from the bottom of my heart, because I got to run and go do something else, I got to go do another virtual event with another school someplace, I want to say thank you to you guys, because from the bottom of my heart, I know without a shadow of a doubt, we wouldn't have gotten this far if it wouldn't have been for the influence that you guys have where you guys are. It's a hard road, but scripture says broad is the gate that leads to destruction. He says many are on it, but he says narrow's the gate and narrow's the road that leads to life. And he says very few find it. And when we find it, it's our job to stay faithful and true, because you can't give people any advice and you can't influence them from a place that you haven't been or a place that you're not willing to go. And you guys have been there and back, and I am there and back with you to the very end.
Amen. Thank you, Andrew.
We love you, brother. Well said. And so much more. That's the thing. We're only getting started. We're only getting started. Dr. Tracy, because I know we're running close on time. Final thoughts from you.
I'm just really excited. I'm excited because you got to understand the long game here. Okay. So we have Trump is in for 4 more years. I thoroughly believe he's going to do everything that he promised to do and more, because he did it the first 4 years. He kept every single campaign promise he had. He kept them all. But here's the beauty, is that in 4 years, we will have a vice president ready to step into a presidential role. And he is a vice president who's young, who is without blemish, who is a strong speaker, and he can debate anybody off the stage because we've watched him do it. Okay. He wiped the floor with walls. So that means that we essentially, as of today, can have 12 years of leadership in the White House. And that's, to me, that's better than anything. And that doesn't even count the Supreme Court, because imagine how many more appointees will be put, conservative judges will be placed in the Supreme Court over the next 12 years. So I think this is a great opportunity for our country. And then also, I just want to point out is that the old Republican guard is gone.
Yes.
We are seeing ushered in a new Republican Party. It's a party of inclusion. It's a party of multiculturalism, as we saw last night and we've seen over the last couple of days.
Diverse coalition, yep.
Diverse coalition. And not just politicians. We've got businessmen, finances. We've got experts in their field. We've got young people through Turning Point. I love going to Turning Point events to see these young people on fire politically. There's no more of that apathy around politics with that age group. So we have got the Republican Party right now is turned upside down, but turned upside down in a way that really positions us to become what the Democrats have claimed to be, but weren't for the past 50 years, because we're there. And I think this is a great opportunity. And what we're going to see, what Trump has done is historic. Okay. Last time this was done, Pierre, you mentioned it earlier, was 1893, Grover Cleveland. The last time a president won, lost, and then won again. So we're going, that far back. But what he's done, even more important than that, is that he has shifted, changed, grown, restructured the Republican Party, that no one can call it the racist. They're still trying to. But that's just the grasping at straws, because anyone who looked even at the, at his speech, and anyone who looked at that rally, okay, could see that we had more diversity there than Kamala had, or at the Democrats had. So I just think we have an opportunity, and I think that opportunity, if we play our cards right, is going to actually reverberate for the next 50 to 100 years. We're never going to be where we were before.
Well said. Well said. Only thing I'll add is Governor Ron DeSantis may have to have something to say about that primary challenge coming up in 2028. We'll see. We'll see. Madeline, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. I'm very proud of the work that we have done over the years with Blexit, and now merging with Turning Point. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But anything worth having doesn't come easy. I'm looking forward to Trump as well, keeping his campaign promises. He seems like a warm and endearing and sincere man. All right. And I don't think that he would say anything, if he didn't mean it, because he has no reason to or not to. I'm looking for a secure border. I'm looking for them to shut that border down. I'm looking for them to, deport the criminals. All right. I'm looking for stronger legislation to protect, families of homicide victims and mothers of homicide victims. I'm looking for a stronger economy. I'm looking for lower payroll taxes so I can bring home more money when I get paid. I'm looking for, just a better, we're not looking for a miracle, all right? But we're just looking for some resemblance of what it was when he was in office 4 years ago. The restoring of law and order, that's big for me, and I believe that that's big for most people in minority communities, because of how dangerous it is and how unsafe we feel living there. We can't afford to get out, right? But at least we should be able to live in, peace and safety. So, like the young man said earlier, that he said he's going to come in and he's going to clean up our neighborhoods, and he's going to restore law and order. He's going to create jobs, and so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to at least, the beginnings of it. I don't believe that, I don't think that we should, put the expectation too high, because we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic, but we're looking for, you know, some resemblance of what it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I voted for Trump. It's because I know what it was like 4 years ago. I was doing so much better. Everybody I know, my family, everybody, we were doing so much better. Life was just better. And we want some of that back. We want it back.
Yeah. And I think Dr. Tracy mentioned this earlier, and I think it's worth mentioning again. People have to understand that Donald Trump, he resonates with people. I mean, the way he speaks to people.
Yeah.
I think Madeline, you mentioned this too as well. But the way he speaks to people, we understand. They're quick to say, "Oh, it must be a cult or something like that." No, some of us just want to pay for groceries, right? Like we said earlier, we just want to be able to pay our bills. We want to have a peaceful life without the government trying to step into every single asset and phase of our life, right? We want to be able to just be proud Americans, right? We don't want to see men beating up women in sports. Like we don't want to be forced to take COVID vaccines or whatever, pandemic vaccines, right? I don't know, YouTube. But we want to be Americans. We want to be free. We want to be happy. We want to chase the American dream. And it feels like every time we turn around, the left is telling us we're somehow horrible people, or they're beating us down, or it's just it gets to a point where people, I feel like, and you saw this yesterday, people just haven't they had enough. It was enough. No more, right? We're sick of this. There's only so many times you can sit here and beat us down, and we just take it. So again, I thank you both for coming on. I'm sure we're going to be celebrating this victory for a long time. Dr. Tracy, you also mentioned this earlier too. We got to get that House of Representatives. Is so important. Hopefully I don't know where the numbers are with that right now, but I pray that we're going to get that, because that would make things a lot easier for Trump to be able to pass the agenda. I'm so happy with what I'm seeing with the Senate right now. So thank you guys again for coming on, and I'll close out here.
All right.
But thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you for what you're doing. This is wonderful.
I love it.
Thank you. And I want to close out with you today, audience, with something that's been on my mind since really before the election, but definitely since we won the election, since it was called last night, right? And I actually made a post on my Instagram today. If you don't follow me, go follow me, the Pierre Wilson, on Instagram. But listen, I have a lot of family members who still very much vote blue. I have some friends who I've been friends with for years, and some of them are still Democrats, right? I have a lot of people who I've red pilled, but there are some who are still Democrats for sure. And I've had this conversation with them before, but to any liberal who is watching, or anyone who is watching and doesn't understand why we vote for Trump, I want you to take a moment to think about for a second, how are you approaching this topic? Have you sat down and actually tried to understand why, especially as Black people, right, as a Black conservative, why we are voting for him? Or did you already just come up with your preconceived notion, as name calling, a coon, whatever, already in your head? Are you just jumping to these things that you've been taught by someone, because that's what you've been taught? Or have you actually taken the time to sit down and understand why we're voting the way that we're voting? My story, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, I'll give you the short version of it, but I very much for years voted Democrat. I remember celebrating in the streets when Obama won his election. I was in college at the time, and I remember getting in the back of a friend's truck, and I was ecstatic. I was riding around, waving my hands, and just like jumping up and down when every time we would park somewhere, I would jump up and down. I think I was jumping up and down on the back of the pickup truck, to be honest with you. It was just pretty dangerous, college life. But I was ecstatic, and I was happy, and I remember feeling overjoyed. But when I look back and I try to think about why was I so happy, the only thing I can think about was the fact that he was Black. There wasn't a policy position. There wasn't anything in particular that I thought he was actually going to do for my life. It was just the simple fact that he was Black. And if you think that's enough, then I question your ability as an adult to think logically, because that's not logical thinking. You're thinking emotionally if you're voting for someone because you want to feel good because they're the same color as you. Donald Trump has facts to back up why he has so much of the black vote. I mean, black unemployment was at its lowest point. I mean, he was breaking all sorts of records when it came to pretty much every racial group. And they remember this when it came time to vote for him again this time around. But to write us off and just to think that we're somehow sexist or racist or we don't like the color of our own skin is to not truly understand our minds. Again, I was a strong Democrat. I thought the world was set up so I could fail, right? I thought black people just automatically had to work 1,000 times harder than our white counterparts. I looked at everything through a lens of racism. So you can't tell me that I don't know what it's like to be you. I was you. I was very much you. And look at me today with my MAGA hat on. No, I didn't lose my mind. No, I'm not doing drugs. No one paid me to change my thought process. In fact, when I started to realize that I was conservative, it was the most lonely feeling I'd ever felt because I didn't know who to turn to. That's how alone I was. I chose to take a stand. And when I took a stand, it was pretty empty out there. You had your old school black conservatives, but there weren't many. So I got called every name in the book, and I had no one else to help me defend myself. Now you have black conservatives everywhere. I mean, I don't even have to defend myself because black conservatives are rushing into my comments defending me before I even get a chance. It wasn't like that back then. But I still stayed the course because I truly believed that black America was going the wrong direction. And I fought. The moment I joined Blexit at the early days, I fought to grow this thing. North Carolina, right? Opened that first chapter. Got a news special. Didn't know it was coming. That thing took off in North Carolina. I opened South Carolina. Then Georgia, then Virginia, and all these different states followed after, and now we got the map full. You think that was something that I just decided I was going to do years ago? No. I realized that we were on the wrong path. I took a stand, even if it meant I was alone, and I was willing to stick it through. And now today, you're looking at an election with a Republican candidate with 23%, in some cases higher, 28% I've seen, of the black male vote. So if you are afraid of what your family may say or your friends may say, know that it's actually easier for you today than it was for me. And if I could do it, so can you. So take a step back, do your research, turn off Rachel Maddow, turn off the crazy lunatics on CNN, turn off Charlamagne the God at the Breakfast Club, stop listening to political advice from Beyonce and LeBron James, do your research, make informed choices, especially if you're a man, because you have a family that you have to take care of either today or in the future, and you owe it to your family to make logical choices. And I'm not trying to be Obama. I'm just trying to get you to think. Obama's trying to tell you what to do. I'm trying to tell you to think for yourself. Until next time, God bless, and Trump 2024.